Understanding when to pivot is definitely a great trait to have because you never know where kind of things can lead off. I've been kind of fortunate not to have to pivot too much in my business, but there's definitely have been a lot of ups and downs that I had to learn from. And it's stay hungry for it. Like if you believe that this can change something, don't listen to investors, listen to your customers.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. Today I'm speaking with Colby Harvey, founder and CEO of Ultraview AI, the company on a mission to build cutting-edge drone inspection technology in the aviation sector. Colby, thanks for chatting with me today.
So yeah, it's great to meet you. Great to be here, Dave.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first of all, the journey into entrepreneurship and starting a company is one that is very different for folks. Can you share a little bit about your journey and how you found yourself into a position of starting Ultraview AI?
Yeah, it's kind of a story. Ultraview is technically the second probably iteration of a company that I've done, but ultimately, while I was in university, I'm originally from Michigan. I studied computer science and then ultimately aviation at Arizona State, and had a magnificent experience. But I wouldn't say it was wealthy in any capacity. So I worked pretty much throughout my time through university. I think my first semester was the time I got to have some fun, but I ultimately got into, since I had done computer science, I've ultimately gotten into dev work and software work pretty early. So I've had the opportunity to work at several different Fortune 500 companies, including like Charles Schwab, American Express, GoDaddy, and Apple at one point. And I enjoyed the stability, I enjoyed the work, but I didn't see like the value and the payoff of what I was wanting to do. I felt that there was an impact in an industry that I specifically wanted to make, and the only way to do that was through entrepreneurship. So I read, there's a couple different books that were out there, Hard Thing About Hard Things, and looked at, and, found my different people or entrepreneurs that have done it, and just kind of shaped myself, like just essentially tried to understand how they did it and asked a lot of questions. I got to work in a startup when I was in university just to kind of get my feet wet to understand, okay, what does it actually take to build something, before ultimately going off and building something on my own.
Cool. What were some of those lessons you learned? Those the ones that stick out with you that are like, okay, that was a good one. Now that you've gone through this process.
It's not for the faint of heart, which we were talking about prior to this, but being an entrepreneur is excessively challenging, but extremely rewarding. Your highs are high, your lows are very low, and you have to be able to slot between the two. I think understanding when to pivot is a good, is definitely a great trait to have because you never know where kind of things can lead off. I've been kind of fortunate not to have to pivot too much in my business, but there's definitely have been a lot of ups and downs in it, that I had to learn from. And it's stay hungry for it. Like if you believe that this can change something, don't listen to investors, listen to your customers. If your customers are telling you they want this and investors are saying they don't see it, don't worry about that. Focus on working with what your customers tell you.
Fantastic. And so, for listeners, let's give a quick overview of Ultraview and then we'll, peel back that on how you decided to get there first. But yeah, what
Yeah.
is Ultraview's unique value and mission?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'll start off with that. So UltraView is a drone-enabled software company. So all that means is that you could think of us like Anduril, right? Where we have a drone component that is the data collection device, but really our core technology is our IP is the software, right? So like Anduril's Lattice platform. So what we do is that we focus in the aerospace and defense market industry, automating the aircraft visual inspection process for commercial aviation, for DoD, and for launch customers. The reason why this is important and necessary is that the way that inspections and the way that maintenance in the aviation industry has been done has not changed in the past 40, 50 years. And that's a problem, as with what we're seeing with currently going on with all of the maintenance related issues that are happening and manufacturing related issues. So what we did was keyed in on one key component of that maintenance process or program, and that was the inspection piece. It's a very lengthy stretch of time that it takes to inspect these aircraft when they come in, around about an average about 96 hours. And we utilizing the capabilities that we have today and computer vision models, artificial intelligence, and autonomy, like we're able to use a drone platform to do that same inspection, at not even a third of the time, around 2 hours. So we identify the data, and we collect and store data that we traditionally, or the industry traditionally, wouldn't have access to, because traditional inspectors just use a pen and paper and they look around the aircraft just with their eyes and jot things down, which is problematic in and of itself. Between like data transfer as well, between paper to an internal ERP tool.
First of all, I love that you compared yourself to a company like Andreal. They're doing quite well. So that's fantastic. So aviation, how did you start targeting on that? What was your interest in aviation and defense?
So that's a great question. I grew up in an aviation family, actually. So my mom, my dad, the man that's the dad to me, all worked in the aviation industry or still currently work in it. So I kind of got the opportunity to grow up in the field, and just I had a joy and passion for flying. I was born in the 90s, early 2000s, so I got to see a lot of there's a lot of like Air Force related like networking that was happening back then. So that gave me a big drive. Like, I mean, think Top Gun. I'm a big sci-fi guy, so Stargate. Those are those kind of things, and I always wanted to be around aviation in some capacity. I was actually applying to the Air Force Academy for university. Didn't get that for just unfortunately, one of my mayors went to prison, so I wasn't able to get that recommendation letter from that particular person. But that didn't really stop me from that. My goal was to be a pilot. I've taken flight lessons and can fly. And so yeah, I've just always had a passion for aviation, and I've always wanted to touch it in some capacity. And that doesn't necessarily mean I want to work for the airline directly.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And having gone to the Air Force Academy, it's a great place to be from. But while I was there, I was definitely jealous of what you were experiencing.
I heard that from one or two graduates before.
Yeah. Well, some big news. You got, accepted into the Techstars Los Angeles, earlier this year. Talk a little bit about how did that come about, and how is that helping you?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So yeah, Techstars was great. We've gone to Instant Vector, which is specific DoD related accelerator as well. But specifically on Techstars, yeah, we completed the program back in June of 2024 this year. The program I think was great. It really helped prepare. Let's just say in the first, I had another company prior to this working in a pretty similar vein doing this stuff, and I really wish that I would have had that accelerator or something like it in that company, which I didn't, because it gave a lot of the core fundamentals that especially first time founders might be missing. So it was really the access to their network, and like when you're Techstars for life. So access to the network, access to the mentors, and really helping to create that core messaging, and how are we actually presenting and pitching this company to investors and to customers ultimately. So I'm still very, very close with my cohort. We talk all the time. I think Techstars was a great opportunity for the business.
That's fantastic. I've heard wonderful things about them, for sure. So you've got a drone, you've got an airplane, you collect your data. Talk to me a little bit, what does that look like? Or, what are the risks, and how do you overcome those when dealing with, I flew F-22s, and I've got yellow material and different things like that. How have you mitigated that? What are the challenges?
Yeah, so I'll walk you through like how the process works, and then
Mhm.
kind of the challenges that we find. There's, you think, on the commercial aviation side, and then also on like DoD. So really how the process works is that you can basically think about like the way that we've developed our platform is to be as user friendly as humanly possible. Like a 3-year-old can pick it up, and we don't please don't send a 3-year-old to use it, but a 3-year-old can pick it up and use it. My mom can pick it up, or my grandpa can pick it up and use the technology. So we handle a lot of the hard part. So what we've done is that it's a fully enclosed system between the hardware, the software running aboard the system itself, and the control platform that we've created to interface with it. So we take in aircraft models. If we haven't had these models before, we use a 3D LiDAR system that is the core of our technology and our navigational capabilities. You can set the drone next to the aircraft, just tell the drone what aircraft it's next to, and the drone will do the rest. It'll do all the triangulation. It's just, kind of like magic, right? Like, put it next to it, the drone knows where it's flying and knows flight paths, and it collects the damage data. I think the challenge, I mean, it's definitely, I'm making it sound pretty easy, but I can definitely tell you building the drone and the software to run aboard it is excessively difficult. It took us quite some time to get it right. And It's definitely not an easy feat, especially in an industry that's typically seen as, traditionally slow, and resistant to change. So that also, gives challenges on the fundraising side, of things as well, which caveat to that with kind of the, American dynamism that's happening right now. It's been helping to give that more of a boost and I'm seeing more investors willing to make those investments, but it definitely hasn't been an easy year for the industry, not just the aviation industry, but fundraising. And that's for any startup in any sector. Things have wrenched back a lot, but not to go too deep on that as a challenge. But when it comes to working with these providers, commercial aviation or DoD, right? Like there are hurdles that you have to hit. There are people that are resistant to change, that don't want to change the status quo. And that's, I'd say, where we've experienced like probably the most friction. But there are also with those people, there are also the people that are excited about these new capabilities and excited to bring in these innovations and the data that they have access to that they can do so many new and creative things with that they just couldn't do before. And the flying around the aircraft part is now not necessarily the difficult part. It's the education and the teaching around it, as it is with any new product, any new way of doing something. So yeah, I think that
That's
hopefully.
cool. Yeah, I did. So are you, when your drone, takes off and it has a model of the airplane, so it's got prescribed places to fly and altitudes, do you have different sensors you can put on your model, or how are you pulling it up? Is it mostly just, visual inspection similar to a person, or are you able to then pull in other sensors that can, maybe dig deeper into how the materials are doing and aging and different things like that?
Yeah, so as it stands now, the system is primarily visual. So the our at least our system, our platform is capable of and has been built to be modular, so we can include different sensor types. The primary sensor that we utilize for navigation is something that we don't necessarily change out, and that's the LiDAR. That for those that don't know, it's like if you've ever seen a self-driving car, right? It's those kind of spinning wheels, those spinning things at the top and on the sides of the
Yeah.
car that's just shooting out a bunch of lasers, where it's just giving the machine the ability, like vision of what's around it. So we primarily focus on the visual spectrum to find damages because that's how technicians find the damages. They're really just looking at it. But ultimately, the goal is to utilize different capabilities, especially we getting to the point where we can like miniaturize some non-destructive testing like equipment and tools, for like depth detection and maybe even eddy current detections and current capabilities. But right now we focus on the visual spectrum.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's great. You don't have to have guys lumbering around on the wings and the fuselage and ladders and
Yeah.
all the different items.
Yeah, operationally it's expensive. It's slow, to do that. I mean, you were in the Air Force. You probably you've seen this happening, right? So, and the worst case scenario is that someone is that they're performing this inspection on the wing and they slip and fall off, right? Those are a couple meters off the ground, so it's very likelihood that you can severely injure or even kind of kick it, you know.
Yeah, are you finding, I mean, I would think, if you're able to do that, you would have, to your point of being able to collect the data, relate it inspection after inspection, and have that database to compare. I would think these, the MROs and the different groups that are doing the organ, the maintenance and the inspections would love this. So are you seeing that adoption? I mean, you're mentioning there's obviously cogs in the wheel of, in the Air Force, you've got your GS contractors that sometimes, don't like the change or their job becomes at risk if you start running people out. But are you seeing that it seems like the opportunity for this, as well as growing into, so many other spectrums of, inspection that they've never even been able to think of doing, would be amazing.
Yeah, that's a great point. So like what I'm seeing is there are a handful of, again, those evangelists, those people that really want to utilize this type of technology because they see the value in it. I mean, the predictive maintenance algorithms alone that we can build from this maintenance data. I mean, even Boeing's trying to take a whack at it, right? So like there are definitely a lot, but at least on the commercial aviation side, airlines are very eager and happy to be number two, right? So prove out a capability with someone smaller, prove to them that it works, and then they'll go to it. The issue with that thinking is that it harms actual innovation, right? If you want everything 100% out of the box, this, I mean, it's not an iPhone, right? This is a consumer level thing, right? If you want everything out of the box, it just, without putting anything into it, it just doesn't happen, especially with this level of like deep technology, right? Like you have to create computer vision models. For that, we need to have access to data. We have to, in order to get regulatory approval, we have to work with you in some capacity. And a lot of this stuff that we have already roadmapped, we've already created the process documentation for how we can achieve this. But again, you get the managing directors of maintenance or the directors of maintenance that are just, again, they've been there for 30 plus years. They don't really want to rock the boat. And that can be, again, that could be a challenge. But the benefit of you taking that risk is substantial, especially when solving one of the biggest and most critical issues that they're facing, which is a huge technician shortage. And that's across commercial and like DoD. There's not enough people to perform these inspections, and there's not enough people going into it to replace the people that are eligible to retire, which is a significant issue. And so the way that you get around that is through a bit of automation.
It makes sense, but there definitely are organizations that are not fast followers, if you will. uh, where are you seeing, where are you seeing your biggest traction? Is it in DoD and kind of the innovation space, through their, whether it's AFWorks type, on the Air Force side versus cyber type contracts, or are you seeing it more with commercial, like Gulfstream, for example? Or where are you seeing like folks that are really biting into this? Going, this is interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? So I've gotten a lot of interest from just commercial industry. DoD, I mean, of course, there's specifically Air Force. There's interest. Well, we're working with an Air Force base out in Georgia right now. But again, in order to get to some of those levels on the DoD side, like I've had to create relationships and build relationships externally to get to the places that I've wanted to, which for a startup is not an easy thing to do. They create, like, see, AFWorks and SpaceWorks and create like they have the SIBR program, but it's the transition between like a phase one to a phase two or phase two to a phase three is very limited. Like there's a lot of red tape that has to be jumped inside of, at least on the DoD side. Commercial aviation, there's a lot of interest as well, but you have to find it only comes from like those core start leading airlines and maintenance operators that are really driving that, and they're showing the industry that it's possible to do this. And it's even coming from the OEM side as well. The OEMs are looking into this. It's just I'm excited as to where it's going. Would I love for it to move faster? Absolutely. But I think where I'm really getting a lot of the most traction is as commercial side with DoD, very, very closely there too. Like I'm definitely not discounting them at all. Like this Air Force base can lead to several different Air Force bases that we've already we built relationships with as well.
Yeah. Well, and also to that point is, I've done a lot of these interviews, if you will, and discussions with other innovative companies. Having that dual use, having the commercial is much more predictable in a venture side kind of deal than pure government, because that is challenging to raise capital in that environment. So you definitely, are you kind of done with your hardware development? Is that pretty much set and now you're focused on the software side?
Yeah, I'd say the hardware side is pretty much done. The reason why, and I'll to give the audience an understanding, the reason why we built out the hardware is because we needed to ensure that we were a fully NDAA compliant like platform, right? We need to ensure that we can get the Blue UAS certification, right? Which at the time when I started building the initial company about 5 years ago now, the only things that were on the market were Chinese drones, which cannot be used in the defense arm of the U.S. government. I mean, and in the U.S. government, just at all. So the refinements that we're doing now on the drone is just really to make it lighter, make it extend its flight time. But really, everything is the software. It is training our computer vision models, training our defect models to identify various different types of things, extending our reporting tool set, which we call the Ultraview Toolkit, creating additional and various APIs for integration with different ERP tools. So that's the tooling systems that these maintenance operations use to log the damages and create their task cards. So extending and scaling that capability. And then ultimately more artificial intelligence, injecting more AI into the platforms, making it a lot smarter, making it the reports a lot more succinct, and just overall making a user experience that is above anything else.
How are you using AI? Like, well, specifically, how are you? Because you hear AI thrown out a lot.
You
You
do.
got machine learning. What are you guys really doing to try to harness this? Because that's often a challenge. Is well, we want to use AI. We're collecting data.
Yeah, and now that I've been, I'd say I'm an overnight machine learning expert because I was a tech guy in my previous career. I used to work at Google before, so like it's definitely my skill set. But how we're using AI is in a couple different areas. The first you can think of is our autonomy stack. So how the drone is actually navigating in a three-dimensional environment, same like you see like a Waymo car or Cruise when those are driving around, ensuring that it's essentially in the defense terms of position, navigation, and timing. Right. So ensuring that like our obstacle avoidance is smart. So if it encounters something that it shouldn't be there, like a ladder, like how is it updating its waypoints and its pathing around the that obstacle to continue performing its inspections. And that's just on the onboard flight software side. On the computer vision side, we have to collect lots of data, clean that data on these aircraft or of the damage types in particular. So think lightning strikes, hail strikes, dents, like warping, corrosion, kind of paint issues. And all of that has to be thrown into a data lake, which then clean. And then you use that, you throw it into a model. You can use TensorFlow or PyTorch or make a variation of the two. And for anyone that's ever interested in like machine learning and deep learning, and neural networks, it is extremely complex and really cool to understand how the machine is identifying various defects and learning over time. But you have to take that data so it can accurately identify what defect is what and then report that back to the end user.
Yeah, definitely a data challenge. Figuring
Yeah.
out what to get out of store and then what to start learning from. Have you guys started doing like, if you look at, I think of fighter airplanes, but the capability to go inside of intakes and really kind of map out the blades and making sure they're good. Have you been able to get there, or is your drone still too large for that?
I'd say it's too large. Next iteration of the system, and this comes after we close some additional capabilities and have our customers like kind of like fully in a ready state. But we don't go necessarily inside of the cowlings. We don't look at the families. Not yet. It's a possibility, and I'd say in a high level sense, just because like the drones aren't like borescopes, right? They're not kind of getting into like the engine bay to look at the engine at the blades and stuff in the engine, the fans and internally. No, we focus primarily just on the external visual inspection. So the drone doesn't go inside the aircraft itself either, at least not in this iteration.
That's great. So how do you look at, I would imagine both the mapping of the airplanes, the data, data security. What do you think about, how do you oversee that to ensure and give your customers confidence that what is theirs stays with them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, especially now. Security is probably one of the biggest concerns, especially on the DoD side. So what we do to ensure that we have that is first it's a couple of different things. We make sure that we are in alignment with CMMC compliance and those rules that have come from the government to ensure the way that the data is stored, the way that we're logging and we're categorizing things and we're anonymizing things are to the standards set forth by the U.S. military. And then we also use there's another framework called NIST that we also utilize as well and make sure that we map our internal processes with that. Then on the hardening side, on the technology itself, there are controls and capabilities that we put in, utilizing access control measures and protocols to ensure people have privileged access only when they need it in certain instances. So it can't just be pulled down for anything. And then as we're operating on the cloud, we ensure that we use a compliant cloud like AWS or Azure or GCP, something that's FedRAMP compliant. And then use that as a selling point for our customers of saying your data is safe and it's anonymized within our tool set, within our network and operations. You have access to it through these particular API keys or whatever it may be. But security is definitely at the forefront of the creation of this technology and the delivering of the reporting. And we make sure we follow the rules set forth or the frameworks that are set forth to ensure that we maintain a high level of security.
Right. Where are you guys in like your journey of raising capital and moving through the whole, series process? Are you revenue yet? Or are you still, how is that going?
Yeah, so that's a great. So you probably understand. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Like the year 2023 and 2024 have been significantly difficult years for any company. A lot of companies aren't like venture funds aren't necessarily prioritizing growth anymore, which I mean I think is really a good thing. Honestly, they're really focusing on like kind of revenue generation. And like, do you have a model that can at least make you profitable? And do you have the resources that can convert to make these profitable? I think some are swinging a little bit too hard because, if they're, especially if they're earlier pre-stage funds, those dollars are meant to be more higher risk. And so a company should need to have revenue at a pre-seed stage for an investment to be made. Especially when you're talking about a deep tech company or hard tech company, someone building something that's in an industry that's, regulated and takes time to navigate. All that to be said, where we stand is like we've raised really on our angel, kind of like leading into our pre-seed round. We are a little post revenue, just some pilot revenue that's been generated. We've done some work with Blue Origin, who was looking at the platform, and a couple, and I have some incoming contracts from two MROs that we work very, very closely with. But yeah, we're right now we're raising an additional 2 million on top of on top of what we've already raised to close it around, just to really onboard the team fully and bring on the right members and really focus on scaling our current pipeline and our go-to-market strategy. And I'm ready to go. I really want to go and run and sell it now that the technology is ready. It's just to do so requires capital. So it requires finding the believers and finding people that, believe in our ability to execute.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, you made great progress. Those are that's challenging to get, the first fundraising, but you've got some believers, and so congrats to you. That's fantastic. Where do you see, what's your goals for the next 5 years? Like, where do you see the opportunity space? And where do you want to be positioned?
Yeah, over the next 5 years, I'm trying to think of things in the span of like, I mean, in a startup, you really think of things month to month to month, but in terms of long-term vision, like 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, over the next 6 months, I want to turn on our revenue generation engine and have our team onboarded full time. I want to be delivering value to the two core customers that we have right now. Kind of like, and really sitting down with that customer to understand what are the continued other pain points that we may have the ability to insulate with our technology. Then, right after that, I want to grow and expand into additional operations, make sure that we can make sure we have the capital and the team to support not just like beyond those two initial customers that we have right now. And then ultimately moving into, well, not ultimately, but moving into the DoD and Air Force side, which we have a period of performance and like Q1 of next year with the Air Force Base out in Georgia for the C-130 platform is our goal. And it's kind of landing and expanding there. And then getting our technology and not just that one Air Force Base, but various Air Force bases around America and around the globe. I want to be positioned as not only just the thought leader, but the leading American company that is operating in this space, that's delivering an incredible amount of value, that has been a key voice and key partner for a broader regulatory approval basis for the technology, and then focusing on that computer vision, and then ultimately moving away from having kind of the human in the loop. So people still reviewing the images and reviewing the reports, but really having that as like a backup to the AI, the computer vision models that are identifying those damages, and getting the aircraft back to service faster and with greater data. That's where we want to be. And ultimately, I want to be in space.
Heck yeah, that'd be a great spot to be. So if you were to then wrap all this up, and you talked a little bit about the beginning, but what, as a young and fired up founder, kind of your second company, what advice would you give to someone that was in your shoes, 5 to 10 years ago?
5 to 10 years, my shoes 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah. Someone who wants to start a company, disrupt, space with technology.
There's a lot. I would definitely let that person know that there are other options available to them than venture capital. Venture capital is not the end all be all for if your company has value or not. It isn't. There are grant programs, there's simple programs to look into. And if you're scrapping, you're capable, and depending on what you're building, you can build it without taking investment dollars, do that. But if you can't, definitely I mean, even if you can, definitely leverage alternative forms of funding through grant programs. I definitely recommend as well is like apply to an accelerator, be in an accelerator, be around other founders that are also building things, because it does get being a founder does, it can be lonely being the CEO. You can't, there's a lot of things you want to talk about, but you can't necessarily talk about with your team. And so surrounding yourself with people that understand what you're going through and that you can leverage and just, like drive conversations on how do you think through this problem? What are the ways that you solve this? And just being that sounding board is incredibly important. Honestly, for your own mental health, it's excessively important to do so. And don't let no's deter you. Again, be flexible enough and malleable enough to pivot if you need to, but you're going to hear 1,000 no's. You just need that one person with big enough check size to say yes.
That's right. That's great. Yeah, it's tough. But you've done a great job and it's awesome to see. So we're definitely cheering for you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we're going to have to cover today. But before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners? Maybe how to get in touch with you or follow the progress?
Yeah, ultimately, like I really love helping, mentoring, advising new founders or founders that are in deep tech or hard tech, building some incredible capabilities. So if you want to get in touch with me, my name on LinkedIn is Colby Harvey. You can find me there. You can also email me directly. It's colby@ultraview.io. And I think my Twitter is like Colbster95. It's really goofy, but you look up Ultraview, find me. Yeah, a little like me.
I love it. Hey, well, thanks so much. It's been great learning about Ultraview. I wish you the best. I love what you're doing. I think there's a lot of capability in that space. And thanks for your time. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Glad we finally got to talk.
That's right.